Welcome, everybody. Like always, we have some new people. We have some other members of the community that have been around for a while, which is awesome. For those of you that don't know, that are relatively new to the community, um, this whole Teaching Tuesdays started as a way to give back. Nicole, who's going to be speaking tonight, uh, has been doing commercial real estate for about 25, 26 years and has had amazing, amazing success, thousands and thousands of units across 11 states. And then about 11 years ago, she started to teach kind of as a give back, right? And then about 7 years ago, I took the class, and then Nicole and I ended up partnering on some stuff. And about a year before COVID, we actually took the entire class. I say she actually put all the material together. I just edited everything, put the entire class back together, rebuilt the entire thing, and it went from 4 days of in person to about 60 hours of video, which, if it wasn't on video, to be honest with you, can be a little bit overwhelming. So thank goodness it's on video, so we can go back and rewatch it whenever we need it, which is fantastic. Um, so that was the whole point. The point behind Teaching Tuesdays is a little bit of both. One, we want to give people a taste and to teach about multifamily. Obviously, in 35 minutes, 30 minutes is not enough time to teach everything. But we want to at least educate people as best we can. And if they like it and they decide, wow, something this really makes a lot of sense, then obviously we encourage them, to take the course and let us help them be successful, especially now. 2024 is going to be an amazing year. Actually, I talked to somebody today from Dallas who is talking about how many people have bridge loans that are coming due over the next 6, 12, 24 months, and how many of those places are probably or maybe going into foreclosure because they can't refi. So if you're in, fantastic. It's going to be an awesome year. If you're not in, then get in, because this is a market that I think we're not going to see again for a very, very long time. So anyway, Nicole, I'm going to, unless I forgot something, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you much. So happy New Year to everybody. I hope it's going to be a fantastic year for everybody. So today we are going to talk a little bit about, okay, what happened to my title here? There. We're going to be talking about using project management professionals and others in repositioning property. So repositioning is basically just rehabbing in commercial speak. And it is, I'm sure a lot of you know, um, repositioning in commercial is both rehabbing and it's repositioning the property in terms of its client set, about who is residing in your building. So it has two meanings, but we are going to be basically talking about the rehabbing part, that where you really have to go in and make some changes. So we're going to talking about that. So I don't know how many people really know what a PMP is. And so that's kind of where I'm going to start. I'm assuming a number of people are coming out of work situations where they're using project managers to head up or to manage things that the company is trying to do. But a PMP is basically certified to manage all aspects of a project. And there's generally two big types. I mean, you see them in other areas too, but the two biggest buckets are in the area of information technology and in the area of construction. And we obviously are looking at and wanting to use the folks that are focused on construction. We use them a lot in larger projects, in larger rehabs, in new construction, in building, you see them a lot in the in the big multi-story buildings, the high rises that people are building. And you will see somebody who is managing the plumbing, somebody who's managing the electric, somebody who's managing the different parts of the project. So I'm not talking about those big projects. I'm talking about the people who are working with smaller projects and are basically managing the whole thing. And I've used them for several years. Back in my early days, um, I got bit pretty bad I stepped in a landmine, and it blew up because I was using in my first larger purchase of an apartment building in Boise, Idaho. It was a 40 unit and it needed a lot of repositioning. And I let the property management company do that, thinking that that was the way to go. And they hired the construction folks, the contractors, and neither one of them were particularly honest. And I recently learned a very expensive lesson. It took me about 8 to 10 years to come back from that. So that was one of my first earliest lessons. And it has stuck with me, and I probably am still a little bit gun shy from that lesson in a lot of ways. So that leads me to sort of say, rarely do I let property management companies manage my projects. And it's nothing to be against project property management companies, because I think that they are essential to our business and to me being successful. But having said that, a lot of times there is a conflict of interest, at least in my world, because they are property management companies. Their main role is to try and make money for their company, just like any other business is. And so when they are taking on a project, if there is, if you're changing up making changes, if you are needing to add different materials, if you're needing to do different tasks, or then they make money during that. And uh, I'm paying for it. So in a lot of ways, I'm losing money from that. So there's just a difference in the focus of where our interests are, which makes me a little bit skeptical about using them, particularly in larger projects. Now, I use property management companies all the time in small things that we need to do. So every year we will have goals and objectives that we're trying to accomplish in the properties. And a lot of them are we're going to upgrade things. So we're going to change out this roof, or we're going to um, upgrade the roads in something, or we're going to replace this or that. And I have no problems using property management companies to coordinate those. However, I am going to keep an eye on those and make sure that we are getting bids, and that those are that we're managing those things. And so I keep a pretty close eye on what's been bid and what is happening with those. So a lot of times property management companies have relationship with contractors. They have to be effective. And sometimes they're working together. There are a number of times that a property management company will actually have a construction arm or a an arm where they have contractors that work with them or for them. And sometimes if it's another company, property management companies get kickbacks for hiring some of these people. And so it's just a fact of the world, of the property management world and of the project management world. And so as long as you're aware of that and you're keeping an eye on things, and from my perspective, if you're keeping the dollar amount that they are managing, or that you are allowing them to manage fairly low, then I think your risk is you're managing the risk fairly well. So generally, if it's a small project, if it's $2,000 a door or less, a property management company can manage it. And I'm just needing to make sure I'm paying attention to the following items: the timeline, the budget, and the quality of what's being done. So any good project, the way you judge how well it's done is it on time, on budget, and on quality. And then any deviation from what we've agreed to in terms of changing the time, changing the budget, we're changing up something else, I'm paying attention to. And so that's what, as long as things are going along on time and on budget, I'm just watching to make sure things are getting done in a timely manner, and we just go the way that goes. Okay. So other people that I have used in the past for managing project are contractors, or a general contractor and a couple of other people. So if it's less than $5,000 a door and it's a small property, then I can let people like a retired or semi-retired general contractor manage it. What I want them to do is to not be acting as the general contractor. I want them to be acting as the project manager. So they're going to find a contractor, or they're going to find the trades to do things, but they are actually working for me, and they are on a separate contract. So it is, I'm trying to think how to describe it well. They're not getting paid from the job itself. They're getting paid for managing the project. And I'm doing that because, again, I want their goals aligned with my goals. And so we have set up the project plan with the timelines, and their job is to bring that in on time and on budget. And they are managing the general contractor or the trades who are doing the work, as opposed to being paid for the contract for doing the work themselves. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense to people? How would you explain it a little clearer? James or Jane, have you got any way of being a little clearer on that? Or was that clear?
Actually, that was very clear.
I'm sorry?
That was
Yeah,
very clear.
that's clear. It was
Okay.
very clear.
All right. So they don't use their own people. They're hiring the tradespeople. They create the project plan and manage it, and they get paid for bringing the project on time. I think you said that. smaller job, in the past, I have actually used fairly successfully like code inspectors from nearby counties to manage my projects. Those are generally smaller, excuse me, smaller properties. So like if I have a 10 unit or a 20 unit and I'm in the two or $300,000 range for needing to get something done, then code inspectors from other counties, a lot of times people are looking for a little extra money and work. And those people tend to know what nearby counties are looking for, and they can make sure things are done according to Hoyle. So those are other people I use, but what these all have in common is we're using them for smaller projects on smaller properties. All right. One of the things that's fairly important is that those folks are on site every day, or they have a way to check that the work is being done. A lot of you know I have properties in 11 states, and there's no way I can be in a lot of my, I'm out here on the East Coast, and a lot of my properties are on the West Coast. And so there's no way I can effectively oversee projects from 3,000 miles away. So what you do have to do is set up ways where you can make sure that the work is being done. And if you have a good project plan with a Gantt chart that's saying this is being done now and it's supposed to be running for the next 2 weeks, then you can set up with phone calls, you can set up with video messages with people who are doing things about what they are starting on that day. And then there's another quick video at the end of the day of what got accomplished. So you can keep on touch of things, but you have to keep on top of things. If you're using a PMP or you're using like a retired general contractor, then you're still touching base with them, um, every week or so to see how things are doing. With a PMP, it's a little bit different, and that's what we're going to be talking about now. So, PMPs are they're typically certified. There are certain things that they typically put together and manage on the project, and they stay on top of things. So this slide really is trying to talk about what do they generally do. And the first bullet there is the big ones. They manage and lead the whole team. They're going to define the project goals. They communicate with stakeholders. They see the project through from beginning, which is actually prior to the work starting, because you actually have to order materials, you have to get the project plan together, you have to get a lot of things done before you even start. And so they are responsible from the beginning through closure and closing down the project. Though they're generally responsible for the success of the whole project. The general big buckets that they deal with are managing the project quality and safety of the work, the financials. They manage invoices, getting things paid, and at the same way, making sure things are booked in such a way that they're fairly easy to hand off to your tax accountant. They're responsible for design. If you're doing certain things inside, say, a number of apartments, they typically manage the bid process and then the contracts related to the bids, and making sure that you have all of the W-9 information you need for the contractors. So there's a number of areas in which they work, and that takes all of that off of my plate if I can hand that off to a PMP. All right. So typically, here's kind of how this breaks down, at least for me on my projects. And at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how I'm using them right now and a couple of things. So they're going to visit the properties to assess what needs to be done, what are the tasks that would enhance the properties. So they are actually going to do site visits. They're going to look through to see, a lot of them have a lot of good construction kind of background. And so they're going to look to see kind of what really needs to be done. What are the codes that they have to follow? And if they don't know it all, they're going to meet with people to be able to figure that out. Um, and then they're going to build the scope of what needs to be done from that. And I'm generally involved in the scope. When I go to buy something or when I'm out visiting properties, I'm going to go through and look to see what I think needs to be done as well. Now, I clearly don't have the construction background that they do, but I do know what I want to see the property become. I know what I think it needs after been out to visit them. So we tend to put our heads together to come to an agreement on what needs to be done and over what time and what are the priorities. And then they're going to build the scope out from that with they're doing a lot of it, but I'm sort of making sure we're on the same path. And so I'm involved a lot with the scope of what needs to get done. From that, they go through and they develop the schedule and the timeline. And they're typically doing that in collaboration with the property management company. So what I wouldn't want anybody to do from what I said initially is to think that I don't have a great deal of respect for property management companies. They can make or break your property. And so our PMPs work very closely with the property management company because they have to work together to get the things done. An underrated part of what PMPs do is manage risk, and there's always a lot of risk with big constructions. And so and it's from everything from safety of the workers to the quality to the to communications with stakeholders, not just me, but like in the communities. They are going to do resource planning about what it's going to take to get this done. And then I'm going to meet with them again to determine how much and what is to be done each 6 months. So I'm tending to meet with the PMP monthly after we sort of get things going. And then we have a fairly longer meeting about every 6 months, 4 to 6 months. It depends on how long the project is going to last. A lot of the projects are about a year, maybe 2 years or less, but not all of them. And so what we're trying to do is to make sure that we are staying in contact and we're changing courses as we need to. They are responsible for the deliverables with the timelines. And one of the key things here is they identify and manage the critical path. So the critical path, I'm sure most of you know, but just in case, is when you build out a project plan, there are certain tasks that have to be completed before you can move on to the next task. So for example, if you have a problem with a foundation, you have to get that fixed before you can start doing a lot of other things. If you have bad roofs on something, you have to get the roof done and changed out before you can start working on the inside, just for obvious reasons. If you are going to be redoing kitchens, you have to, and you're going to say be replacing the countertops, let's just say, you have to have ordered those well in advance before you can. And so if you don't have the product there on site, everything stops until you can get that. And so the critical path is basically the items or the tasks in the project that have to be done and done on time, or the whole project slows down. And so that is a key component of what PMPs do, is that they really identify and manage that critical path so that you are not losing time as a whole. All right. So most projects, just like any task or anything you're working on, has some critical success factors that if you don't do them well, there tends to be a problem with the whole project. And here are some of the more common critical success factors that PMPs need to identify and manage. So obviously budget and cost, time, employee satisfaction, marketing, training and education, and quality standards. They are responsible for managing the budget, and they are responsible for paying for materials, paying workers. So they basically manage the budget and the payments. The initial when I'm starting with a PMP that I don't really know, I'm really paying a lot of close attention to this to make sure that this is being managed correctly. And we're meeting, I'm looking at what's being paid in the invoices and checking it against what the project says and what the estimates of cost were. They're identifying the stakeholders and managing the stakeholders. And a lot of times stakeholders are people in the community, the code enforcement people, the permitting people. So there's a lot of stakeholders. They are looking at the work breakdown structure. Sorry, I don't know if, oh, I hope you can't see that. This thing keeps popping up on me. I'm kind of,
Can't
you
see it.
probably can see it. I'm just trying to get rid of it here.
We can't see it, Nicole.
Oh, okay, good. All right. So the work breakdown structure is basically what the entire project looks like on a timeline and when what has to be done. They are managing the communications, the quality of the project, and then they are at the end, they're finalizing and closing down the project and doing the final reports and making sure everything's done. So to me, they just take an awful lot of stuff off of my plate. I couldn't be doing a lot of what I do if I didn't have PMPs managing some of the bigger projects. Okay. So what does it cost to use them, and what makes it worthwhile? Well, generally, if you're using so if you're using a general contractor, they are generally adding a certain amount of cost, or certain amount of what they're charging over and above what the trades are going to do, or what they are hiring other people to do, that is getting them and their company paid. So in terms of using a PMP, we're thinking about that, because most of the time PMPs are not going to use general contractors. They're going to hire trades and manage the trades. And so they are in a way, they are managing as the general contractor, except they have specialized training, and they're going about things in a kind of in a systematic way that is part of the PMP process, of the project management training and process. And so generally, general contractors are adding 10% or so over and above what the cost of the project is. And a PMP is adding 10 to 15%, and that's what they're going to get paid. But for me, they're taking on a lot of things that I would be having to do or oversight if it was a general contractor. They get paid bonuses when the project comes in on time, on budget, and on quality, and with not a lot of change orders. So they are not getting extra money for all if the project goes extra time, or it costs extra money, or there's a lot of change orders, as opposed to general contractors who do. Some contracts actually have penalties if there's too much variation in any of those areas. I tend to not use those, but a lot of the bigger projects where people are building these high-rise buildings, there definitely are those penalties. I do tend to use bonuses if things are completed on time and according to the contracts. They are typically there every day, or they have a way of overseeing the work every day. You find them, so the PMI is the Project Management Institute, and that's the website for it. You can find people on the PMI website that are looking for work, or who have been certified. And you're obviously looking for people with construction experience. A lot of the PMPs work on these really big projects, at least the constructions ones do. And so I have found luck in finding people who are trying to get off on their own a little bit, who are trying to get some experience with being the overall project manager. And they're happy to start with the smaller projects, like we typically have if you're buying a multifamily property and needing work done. So they're not the really big projects. I mean, I don't have projects like those. I'm not playing in that realm. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have that kind of those big properties, but I do use them, and I wanted to show you that just a minute here. So this is a lot of you know, but some of you may, the end of 2019, just in time for the pandemic. Um, I bought a 20 property portfolio that was an REO portfolio, and some of them were short sales. And so there was 20 properties and about I think it was about, I can't remember, it was 600 or 800 units, but it was a fairly good sized portfolio. And of the 20 properties, 9 of them needed a PMP. So I basically hired a PMP to work for me full time, just about the time. So I closed on those properties in August. So it was a 3-part closing: August, September, and then December. And so December was the short sales properties, but I hired the PMP very early on, and they were out looking at the properties and doing their assessment. And so it was some of these things got started a little bit later than others. So if you remember, in about January of 2020 is when the COVID kind of took off. And it put everything behind. And so we were about a year behind in a lot of things. So you couldn't find workers. Materials were hard to come by, they were expensive. And so it was just a rough time. And so here are the 9 properties that I used the PMP on. The ones that are in gold are the ones that are still being worked on. All right. So these others have been completed. So Missoula, um, we're just about at the end of that. And so I haven't, it was supposed to wrap up mid-December, and I don't think we've probably got quite everything done, but I'm pretty confident that, end of January, end of February, everything will be done. Because what we're doing right now is just kind of wrapping up the project and making sure everything, all the punch list things, everything is done and the final documents are done. Sheridan, Wyoming is kind of my problem child. It's just there was a lot of problems there to begin with. There's a lot of problems with code, the code people. The previous owner, I know James has heard this before, but the previous owner got into a physical altercation with the code inspector, which didn't go down very well, and that has kind of melded over into us as owners, or me as an owner, because they just don't have a good feeling about this property. So I am guessing this is the one where we've had to change the timeline and we've had to change the budget, because just things have not gone very well. So at this point, I think that we're probably looking at the middle to the end of 2025 to finish everything up here. Sandpoint, Idaho should be done by the end of this year. Now, we did a couple of things to begin with, and then we went back and looked at this property. It is right on a lakefront, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful area. And so we decided that what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade everything it was a C property in a B plus, B minus, B plus area. And so we're upgrading the whole property to a B plus or A minus property. And so we've changed the plan on this, and we're targeting the end of 2024. So the other property is it's 176 units. It's 3 mobile home parks in Butte, Montana. And we are the only one that isn't done at this point is the second one, and it's delayed about a year. And the reason for that is it's been harder and harder to get new mobile homes to put in. But I think that it is at this point. Let me kind of back up. So the way we did this is that we started out um, kind of trying to get mobile home park 1 up and going, and then we moved to 3, and then we are finishing up with number 2. It's a larger property. It had more to be done. And so it is actually not delayed so much as it's just the third of 3 that we're working on. And it should finish the end of 2025 to early 26. The other thing we're looking at right now is adding more. So the property, mobile home park number 3, actually has extra land. And there's a need for more affordable housing in that area. So we're looking at seriously at building out some more pads, so some site prep and getting some property, getting some homes on it. And so we are working on that right now, trying to get the permits, and then trying to work with some of the mobile home manufacturers to get some more homes on there. So that would be adding spaces in both 24 and 25. So the way this worked when I bought it, I had 7 years before they have to refi. And so about the middle of 26 is when we are going to need to go back and get new loans. They're all coming up for balloons. And so that's kind of where I am with that. And so I think that's kind of what I wanted to say there. The last thing I want to talk about just real quickly is that we're having a class in March. What are the dates, James? Do you remember?
7, 8, 9, and 10.
So we're doing a 4-day face-to-face class. We haven't done one since before the pandemic in Baltimore in March. And normally the price for the course, the online course, is $19.97, and it is still $19.97. What makes this a good deal is that if you sign up by the end of the month, if you're interested, is that we will let you come to that 4-day face-to-face free of charge. And so you're getting basically a twofer. And you can make it in 1 or 3 payments. And I don't know if James changed out the place where to go to sign up, but if he didn't, I know he will. And so that's kind of the place where you can go to sign up for the 4-day if you're interested. The last thing here is if you want to know more about about some general tips on multifamily investing, we did a free webinar, and that bit.ly address there is where you can go see that. It's about 2 hours. The next thing is our website, followed by an email. If you have any questions, you can email us at support. And we have a YouTube channel, and all of these Teaching Tuesdays go up on our YouTube channel. This one ought to be up by Thursday or Friday of this week. And you can see the address. That our YouTube channel will have this class and all the other Teaching Tuesdays we've done on a playlist there. And at this point, I'm just going to turn it over for comments and questions, and let it I don't know how I always spend so much time talking. I'm sorry.
It's always good though. So
Oh, geez.
yeah.
I run at the mouth so much.
If you
Okay,
want to,
somebody's snickering behind their hand there. I can see, oh, Texas there. All right, any questions that I can answer? Comments?
I was just gonna say that
Absolutely. Oh, good.
all the links are in the chat for everybody. YouTube channel, how to sign up for the 4-day class, the free webinar, our email addresses and stuff like that. You just click on them. For the email, I think you're gonna have to cut and paste, but everything else looks like it's clickable.
All right.
I think someone had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to shoot in a question for you guys. And I think based on what you said and the anticipation of some great deals coming down the pipeline, what do you think is the best strategy for locating potential properties that would fit that category, either a pre-foreclosure or foreclosure or bank-owned properties, but really just kind of trying to figure out where's the best place to get started looking for those deals.
I guess my answer would be finding smaller markets, um, tertiary markets generally, because there isn't the competition and the prices are not quite so high. Um, and the best place to find um, properties in the residential world, you can buy lists of 30, 60, 90-day lates. You can buy those for small multifamilies too. And so letters tend to work with some of those. A lot of these properties end up with brokers, and so making relationships or building relationships with brokers in the areas once you find your market is a good way to go. Um, Actually, joining kind of apartment owners associations and things like that is a great way to get yourself kind of keyed into what's going on in those market areas. A lot of times they really do know what's going on. What would you add, Jane or James? Anything else, Jane, Sharon, James?
So actually something that actually just came up today was the actual lenders, reaching out to them, the ones you know, or maybe the ones you don't know, and let them know that, if something comes up, distress, whatever it may be, you'd be more than happy to look at it. And a friend of mine actually just called me about one of the properties, and that's exactly how he found it. He went through a lender.
That's a good advice. Where do you recommend someone starts pertaining to raising capital? That is an issue of really, um, didn't you do, James, not very long ago, kind of a class on kind of raising capital or trying to market for people to sort of get to know them, marketing?
Yep, it's actually on the YouTube channel. It's on the playlist for Teaching Tuesdays. Um, it was recent. I want to say it's in the last couple of months.
Do you remember what you called it?
Unfortunately, no, but people should be able to scroll through it. I know there's like 50, I guess by this time, 52 classes up there, or 50, something like that, but they're in chronological order. So I would just start at the top and scroll down a little bit. You might have to go through 8 or 10 or something, or you might find something else that really interests you and be able to watch that as well.
The real trick is you have to begin even before you find a property. You have to start talking to people about what you do. You probably need some kind of a document that kind of acts as a introduction to you about, who you are and what you do that you can share with people, kind of thing. Oh, very good, James. What are you showing people?
So one thing is, let's see, this is actually the syllabus, if you will, for the course. And we'll be covering a lot of this during the live session. Obviously, there's a ton of information here, so we won't be able to cover all of it. But in terms of marketing for investors and stuff like that, that's here. If you want to get into syndications and stuff like that, there's the right way to do it, and there's the wrong way to do it. So obviously you don't want to do it the wrong way, or you will get an enormous fine or get kicked out of syndications for the rest of your life, or maybe even go to jail. And then in terms of rehabbing, repositioning, where is it? I know there's a whole module on here somewhere. What we buy, where we buy, offers, LOIs, acquisitions, creative strategies, due diligence. Where is it?
Oh, you've gone past it.
Oh, here it is. Repositioning and rehabbing commercial properties. So more detail and more information is in this module right here. But obviously there's a ton of other things as well. And that's the website that's up there, passivecashflowforlife.com. But any other questions we can answer for people?
You can ask questions on anything. Has anybody used PMPs in the past? Or have experience using general contractors and stuff like that? I know Sharon and Jane do that a lot.
Yeah, we've not used the PMP, just GC.
How hard is it to fire one of those if things go really south?
You mean a PMP?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in your contract with the PMP. So you would
then if
have
they're-
to, you do have a contract with them, so it's probably probably a little bit harder, but you also are seeing kind of how they're putting together the scope and all of the documents, the work breakdown structure, the critical path much before they get started, to get a sense of how they're actually thinking.
Makes sense. I wouldn't want to fire one if they were the code inspector for another county that you have properties in.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. It's a good point.
That is a good idea. I guess a lot of them look for extra work, or is it
Yeah,
easy?
I think a lot of them do. So at least you can check it out, kind of thing. It's just, the point is to align your goals with their goals, and not to having competing, it's for them to make extra money, you have to lose money. You just want to align goals.
Makes sense. And I like that idea because we've always done the opposite, where we penalized the GC for going past the due date. I like how you do it better by giving bonuses and doing positive reinforcements. That's a great idea.
All right. Well, if there is no other questions on anything, we're kind of getting towards the end there, and I'm going to turn me off here and turn it back over to James, to introduce Jane and Sharon, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Thank you for joining, everybody, and hope to see you next week. We're going to be talking about IRAs and why everybody needs an IRA, a self-directed IRA, next week. And so thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And James, over to you.